Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of Everything Kratom, the podcast about anything and everything Kratom. Great to have you with us, as always, on this Thursday morning. Hope all is going great with you all out there. I'm doing fantastic today. I don't know what it is. Today I'm just in a great mood, and somehow all is right with a world that's not necessarily where all is right. Do you get what I'm saying? I don't even get what I'm saying. Anyway, needless to say, I'm doing fine today. So let's just move on before I embarrass myself further here and get into the topic of today. So today, what I wanted to talk about was a theory that I've come across a couple different times, and I've also kind of formulated it myself at the same time. It's one of those things where I don't really know if I've had this original thought before, or if this has always been informed by outside sources. By outside sources, I mean anybody but me. So, I'll let you be the judge, but I'm not claiming I came up with this idea, that's for sure. But I have experienced this myself, and I experienced it before learning that it was a potential theory of how things work in the world. So with that as a weird, confusing intro, let's get into it. What I've noticed in the past is that when I try something or take in something, bring anything into my body that's not necessarily for the purpose of food, but more as a purpose to affect how my body is, it kind of works a lot more during the daytime. I'll give you an example. If I were to drink 2 beers at 12 noon, other than the fact that it might be St. Paddy's Day, you would think, okay, well, I'm going to feel like I just had 2 beers. If I drink the same 2 beers, with the same amount of food in my stomach and the same sort of sleep schedule or whatever, but I have 2 beers in the evening, let's say 7 p.m., and the sun is going down and it's just time for partying or whatever, but if I have the exact same amount to drink, personally, I feel a lot more of the effects of alcohol at 12 noon than I will at 7 p.m. And I've noticed that sort of circumstance take place a number of different ways. You can substitute alcohol for marijuana. I've tried marijuana a handful of times at least. The times that I've done it, most of the time it's nighttime, but occasionally I've done it during the day. And this is especially talking about my college days, which I can't believe I'm actually even kind of old enough to say that I have had college days. But anyway, getting back to the matter at hand, I've had marijuana at pretty much any point in the day at some point in my life. And so what I've noticed with that experience is the same. If I have 1 bowl of weed, right, and I smoke that, and I do that in the evening time or the nighttime, versus if I do that exact same bowl during the day at noon, I'm going to feel a lot more under the influence of weed at 12 noon than I am at 7 at night or 10 at night. And this actually, bringing us to the point of this podcast, which is Kratom, this also happens with Kratom, and I'm just starting to really take note of it. So I can take maybe up to 4 grams of Kratom, and then after that, it's I don't do well. It's not good for me, I feel bad, I get dizzy, etc., etc. It's just not right for me. So I never really go above 4 grams ever. Usually I'm sticking around 2.5 grams, give or take, of any, given type of Kratom, and with any given dose. I'm usually around 2.5 grams. Taking 3.5 grams is really getting towards the upper limit for me, and sometimes that can even be too much. But what I'm noticing is that taking 3.5 grams of Kratom, let's say I'm taking green tie or white tie, but let's say green tie. Let's say I'm taking 3.5 grams of green tie midday versus 3.5 grams of green tie at 7 p.m. I find that it's more likely that I'm going to get dizzy and start having the negative effects of taking too much Kratom for my own body at noon than I would at 7 at night. It's very rare that I've ever experienced the feeling of oh, that was too much Kratom at 7 at night or 10 at night or any time in the evening. it's always during the day. And now that I'm kind of thinking about it more these days, I'm looking into it a bit, and I've also experienced this so much with other things that I feel like there's something to it. So just doing a little bit of research and then also just kind of like diving into my memories and trying to think if there were other experiences like this, here's what I've come up with. I think, keyword on think, like big keyword on think, this is completely really like non-scientific as much as you can get it. It's more of like my opinion. I think that during the day, your body is the most awake. You're taking in sunlight, you're getting vitamin D, your body is active. So if something is more active than when it's not, in the evening, for instance, and you throw something in there to change how things are working, you're going to notice it more if you're more active. This is a very basic general way of trying to get across what I'm trying to say here. So, for example, if my body is very much awake at 12 noon and I'm getting vitamin D and, every cell in my body is doing something because it's daytime. That's a ridiculous way of putting it, but let's just go with it. If everything in my body's working because it's like midday and then I take, I drink 2 beers, okay, it's not like it's more than drinking 2 beers in the evening, but the difference is that my body is like moving and my brain is moving at a different pace and in a different way than if it were the evening time and I was winding down for bed. And so the effects are noticed more and felt more. That's kind of the theory. That's my idea, at least. That's what I think is happening. And although I'm not finding too much to back this up scientifically so far, I have read a number of people's experiences that are very much in line with mine, where in the middle of the day, you're experiencing the same dosage of any sort of drug. Could be kratom, could be alcohol, could be other things. You're experiencing it a lot more than you would experience the exact same thing at nighttime. And so this is kind of factoring into my kratom use, and especially recently, as I've noticed this, I've found myself trying to keep my amounts more limited during the day, and then in the evening time, feeling like I don't need to hold back as much if I feel like I want to take a little bit more of something. In the evening time, I will do it, and I've noticed that I don't really have those negative effects that maybe I'd be afraid of having if I took, 3.5 grams of green tea midday. Now, of course, this isn't like a reason to take it. Like, I don't take kratom if I don't need it for some reason, but once in a while, it can be very helpful to take 3.5 grams of something. Maybe not green tea, but if I want to take red tea, I could take 3.5 grams of red tea at nighttime and calm down and get myself ready for bed and just kind of ease into a relaxing evening. If I were to take that amount, a few hours earlier, I feel like it might be too much for my body to handle. Like I might actually get sick to my stomach, but in the evening times I don't. And I just find this such an interesting aspect of kratom, as well as other things, but let's focus on kratom, because kratom already has such varied effects, and the effects vary within each type of kratom based on how much you take. And on top of all that, I feel like, at least for me, the sunlight is playing into it. And my body, what point in the day is my body at, and how awake is it, and how much work am I doing? Not work in terms of like my job work, but work in terms of what my body's up to. And, am I absorbing energy and, getting calcium into those bones? And what is my body doing? And what does it mean to throw a wrench into the bicycle wheel? Because that's kind of how I see it. It's like the wheel is moving and you throw a wrench into it, it's going to like stall it up and be a lot more noticeable than if your bike is going at a very slow pace and you're just moving it over to park it and someone throws a wrench through it and it's like, okay, I was already going like 1 mile an hour. So it doesn't really matter. I guess that's the way of putting it. I kind of feel like taking substances during the day for me is like I'm moving on a bike faster and you're throwing something in the spokes of my wheel. Versus in the evening time, I'm just walking my bike over to the garage to park it there for the night. And then you throw something in my wheel and I'm like, haha, very funny. And then I just keep going. So, I don't know. This is a very abstract episode in some ways. And then I'm just trying to like make it more simple. But I hope I am. I don't know if I am. But that's kind of how I feel. So, all of this in saying, I'm just going to keep looking into this. I'd really like to know if other people have experienced a similar thing where they find that drugs or substances or whatever you're talking about affect you more during the day than they do during the evening. I'm sure that's not true with a lot of things, but for me, when it comes to kratom, it certainly is the case. And again, I've never really had to deal with that negative feeling of too much kratom in the evening, or at least not like I have during the daytime. I've certainly experienced that a number of times. And I think that that's telling, because I certainly haven't gone more overboard during the day at some point in my life versus those times when I have at nighttime. Actually, I would argue that I've gone more overboard at nighttime than I have in the daytime on accident. So I think that the experience is telling, and I'd be interested to know what you think and if you have that same experience. Also, let me know, like, is there any scientific backing to this idea that like vitamin D and like sunlight is playing a role in making these things affect me more? Shoot out an email, anythingeverythingkratom@gmail.com, and prove me right or prove me wrong. Either way, I'd love to hear it. Okay, everybody, have a great rest of your day. Get your sunlight in, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. All right, everybody, take it easy. Bye-bye.